The proposed VAT on private school fees by Keir Starmer's Labour government has provoked significant opposition from the Independent Schools Council, the ISC, which is considering a legal challenge now based on human rights concerns. And the ISC argues that Labour's policy may disproportionately affect vulnerable groups, particularly SEND students, that's special educational needs and disabilities, military families and faith groups, but particularly the SEND students, many of whom, in order to qualify as a SEND student, a bureaucratic process lasting some 2 years can take place, and so before people are fully documented and therefore fully qualify for the state support, some parents who know their children well send children to independent schools where they can automatically access the SEND support, the extra tuition, the extra classroom support that is needed for their children to access sort of subject and teaching facilities. So I've taught in many schools where there is clear SEND support, and yet children have not been fully documented. And these children will not receive help should they be moved from the private education back into state schools mid-year. And the specific worries about the impact on students midway through critical exam courses, which of course take 2 years and would often involve a series of set books which cannot be reproduced from one school to another. It doesn't matter whether it's state school or independent schools. Different schools select different books on the syllabus. There's a wide range of choice. And there are specific worries about the impact on students midway through these courses, where a sudden change in fees might force families to switch schools, disrupting educational continuity, and causing stress. So for example, if the Prime Minister leads from the front and demonstrates that his own child deserves a £20,000 investment by accepting a donation from Lord Ali, so that he can avoid the stress leading up to his GCSE exams, then it makes perfect sense that other parents could invest money to ensure that their children avoid the stress leading up to public exams. As one HMC spokesperson put it, whilst we await the legislation to be published, we continue to have concerns about the haste with which this policy is being introduced. Exam courses, often lasting 2 years, involve tailored curricula, and changing school at this stage, as I say, would present significant challenges to students, and specific books and materials studied in private schools are rarely duplicated in state schools. One school is very different to another school in the set books that it chooses, making it nearly impossible for students to adapt to new academic settings without added stress. In GCSE, it's bad enough. In A-level, it's almost impossible to replicate the set books from one school to another. And furthermore, the government's decision to introduce VAT in January 2025, mid-school year, exacerbates these concerns, as parents will be forced to reconsider their financial commitments abruptly. And schools will need to be reconsidering what they do. Some schools have already closed. For SEND pupils, who often rely on tailored support systems in private schools, the proposed changes are catastrophic. These students typically require consistent educational frameworks, which can be severely disrupted by mid-year moves, and the ISC is particularly concerned that students with special needs, already facing a unique set of challenges, would suffer the most under these changes. Despite this, Labour remains committed to introducing the 20% VAT on school fees, estimating it will raise £1.5 billion, which they argue would benefit the state sector by funding the recruitment of 6,500 new teachers and 8,500 special health specialists, mental health specialists. But there is no certainty that simply increasing the number of teachers who are recruited, staff who are recruited, will increase the quality of the teaching. And the government should look at staff retention, perhaps more than staff recruitment, and also look at whether or not we are teaching in the best possible way. I don't think so. I think we should be buying in courses which can be used on computer screens or AI so that teachers can focus on monitoring their pupils in the classroom and inspiring those pupils, rather than having to come in every day and informing them, providing information which can be easily got, which can easily be bought in. Private schools are already seeing a drop in enrolment, partly because of a falling off in birth records a few years ago. But there's 10,000 fewer pupils this year alone, suggesting that the government may have underestimated the financial pressure this policy will impose on the state sector, because those pupils who are not going to be enrolled in the private system will have to be accommodated in the state system, which is already struggling with larger class sizes and with absent teachers. If Labour's tax proceeds as planned, private schools will continue to seek legal remedies, and though the legal challenge, if successful, may not stop the policy, it could pressure the government to make serious concessions, and victory in the High Court could signal that the concerns of the private educational sector are valid and require further mitigation, particularly for SEND pupils and other vulnerable groups. The forthcoming vote within the ISC will determine the course of action, but it's clear that the educational landscape in the UK is bracing for significant disruption.